We're going to jump into it in just a minute, but I know that lots of people are logging in, so I'm going to give them a couple minutes to see us. And then at the same time, we're also broadcasting to our VIA membership, so to the VIA private group. And while we're waiting for everybody to come on board, I figured I'd take a minute and acknowledge some of the new VIA members. Shall we do that?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so every day we have hundreds of new VIA members that are coming on board. And so today I want to welcome Jill Vaverka, Virgil N., Tina, Eric Ellis, Mary Rash, Jose Cruz, Lee Bells, Eddie Smith, Micah Nwafia, Nangquo, Sunday Marquita, Strader, Nick Gilpin, John Miles, Sue Block, Gerald Eberhardt, Sonny Meller, Faleme, I can't pronounce it. We have a lot of people from Africa. I can't pronounce some of them. Welcome, guys. Michael A. Scott, Duncan Mangs, Adreniel Agini, John White, Alex Hart. Oh my God, the list goes on and on.
That's a long list.
Prince Richard. Welcome, guys. Oh my gosh, so many people. So I do want to let you know that we're going to be answering questions. So I've got questions here on the phone, so just pop them up in Facebook. And when we wrap up, before we wrap up, we'll answer all questions. Sound good?
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. Well, for those of you who don't know who I am and you're just joining me, I'm founder of 123 Employee, the premier outsourcing centers in the Philippines, and the founder of VIA, the Virtual Entrepreneurs Association, all the tools, resources, discount, education, community that the small business owner needs to grow their business. And specifically, we like to focus on virtual entrepreneurship. And the reason why is because I know that if you're an entrepreneur, or, well, let's say you are an entrepreneur, I know that you probably got into the business not to make a ton of money. You got into business to have what that money affords you. You know, it's lifestyle, traveling the globe, doing what you want to do wherever in the world you want to do it, being in control of your own destiny. Or if you're an aspiring entrepreneur, I'm sure you want the same thing. But the reality is most entrepreneurs get into business. They end up working 80 hours a week so they don't have to work 40 hours a week for somebody else. They work their tail off. They get paid less than they ever got paid when they're out in the working world. And they're tied to their desk. They don't get to spend time with their friends and their family. They don't get to do all the things they want to do. They're just busy grinding. And I will tell you this, that grinding is certainly a good way to kill your passion.
Absolutely.
Right? And so we figured we would take some time out now to do an interview with Beejel, and I'll tell you why. So I do events all over the globe. We do events all over the globe. We teach people how to have the virtual lifestyle. We do it through leverage by utilizing an outsourced team, right? And what happens is people come to our events or they go through our trainings and they get inspired. They go home, they sell everything, and they live their true life adventure. And some of the adventures that we have seen have been unbelievable. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. So we had somebody that came in through our event. His name was Roy Meyer. Yep. Roy Myers came in. He then ended up signing up for our mastermind. Came to our mastermind, and we taught him how to create a new business. So, well, he had a vision for the business, but we helped him orchestrate that business. And what had happened was he'd made a lot of money as an appraiser. He had a big appraisal company, and then 2008 came, and he had to reinvent himself. So he decided he was going to have a membership platform for appraisers, and then later a membership platform for real estate people to basically outsource. And so we helped him with that. He's crushing it now. And then he's like, you know what, my kids are young, and I want to have great experiences with them before they kind of move away and do their own thing. And so they sold everything, and they've been traveling all over the globe having the greatest adventure ever. Another example is Oliver Schmalholtz, who came through our mastermind also. Same thing, had some great success, got inspired, and he and his wife sold everything, and now they're in Guadalajara this month. They're in a different country or city every month. They're traveling all over the globe. And what happens, a lot of these people end up becoming business partners of ours. So right. Oliver is now our business partner in the VIA Virtual Summit. So it's pretty awesome. But the very first test case was you, right? So let's talk about that. So let me give you some backstory here. So first of all, Beejel and I met a decade ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yesterday was a decade
like
around that.
10 years ago.
Yeah, something like
10
that.
10 years ago.
Like I think it may have been 11 or something like that. But anyways, it was around now. Yeah. And Liz, more than 10, isn't it?
10. We're 11, so
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
10-ish.
yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. Okay. So so then I guess the company's been around for about 12 or 13 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, I want to talk a little bit about how we met because I think it's important. Yeah. But someday we should go deep and really talk about it. So the way we met was the very first day I ever spoke on a stage. And at a certain point in our business, we knew that we wanted to go from marketing to one to marketing to many. And I want to talk to you guys about this. If you currently have a business or you're looking to start a business, most businesses market to one. They don't market to many. And when you can market to many, you can grow your business exponentially. So let me explain what I mean. Most people market one-to-one. They get on the phone or they do an email or they do some sort of marketing and they sell to one person. A few years into our business, we decided to market to many. And the way we did it is I started speaking on stages. We started doing events all over the globe, Australia, US, Europe, Asia, New Zealand, Australia. And we started doing webinars. And every time we opened our mouths, we were talking to many. Every single time instead of one. Could you imagine, instead of selling to one, why not sell to 500? Right? Each time you open your mouth. When we did that, that was a massive tipping point for our business. Massive. And we had a few tipping points for our business. So that was one of the big ones. Another one was when Tim Ferriss's book came out, The 4-Hour Workweek. That was a game changer. I'm sure if you're watching this and you're an entrepreneur, you've probably read The 4-Hour Workweek. If you haven't, get The 4-Hour Workweek. And if you're starting something new, get The 4-Hour Workweek. It's a game-changing way to think about how to run your business. But for us, it was a massive tipping point in our business. And the reason why is this. We were a U.S. company based in the Philippines. And over a decade ago, outsourcing was un-American. Now, today we live in a global economy, and I think the vast majority of people realize that. But back then, they did not. So every day, we would get emails, F you, F you, F you. We would get calls. Pick up the phone, hello, F you, F you, F you. And they hung up on us. It was terrible. And so when Tim Ferriss's book came out, we no longer had to defend ourselves. We could we could really focus on educating our prospects and turning them into clients. So that was a big tipping point in our business. Third tipping point, and probably the biggest tipping point, was you. Okay, and so let me set the stage for how this happened. So what happened was I was speaking on my very first stage. And it's a longer story. I guess we'll just do the short version. But I was speaking for Marshall Silver, who is arguably the greatest hypnotist of our generation. And he had asked me to just come up and speak. I wasn't a speaker yet, so he just said, well, that's okay. I'll do a Q&A with you on stage. And in the audience was a young, bright, can I say down on his luck?
Yeah.
Yeah, down on his luck entrepreneur.
Well, let me interject.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was just coming off a few years of ups and downs.
Yeah.
And more downs than ups.
Right.
But this was a reinvention event.
Yep.
So I just gone through some of Marshall's training.
Right.
I just reinvented myself, and I reinvented myself in the outsourcing space.
Right.
And I had three girls in the Philippines ready to go with the new clients I was going to get from this event.
Right.
So I came in, I was all upbeat. I had my new business cards, my new website. So I'm shaking hands. I'm there to prospect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I sit down in the front row. Why? Because people who want to win with the winning attitude go in the front row. That's right. What we're told.
Yeah.
And the very first person who comes on stage is Daven.
Right.
And Daven's talking about his success since the age of 15.
Yeah.
Success in the fashion industry, in the music industry, in the dance industry, in the textile industry, in the live production industry. And I'm sitting there going, oh, and then now in the outsourcing industry with 200 employees in the Philippines. So I go from confident and happy to, oh my God, of all the events in all the world, I happen to be at the one where the very first speaker is a competition for me.
Yeah.
However, as I listened to you, I was like, wow, if someone's had success time and time again in different businesses, there's probably something I can learn from this guy.
Sure.
So at the end of your talk, I came up to you and I said, hey, Daven, I'm just getting started. Could I connect with you, give me some tips? And I didn't expect Daven to say yes, because I mean, why would he want to give advice to somebody getting started in the same industry as you?
Yeah.
But you said yes.
Yeah.
And that was the start. You gave me your phone number. Yeah. On Monday, I called you up. And I think we've been talking pretty much every day
for about
a month and a
half. Well, yeah, that's true. So that was very interesting. So I remember, I think it was Marshall that taught you something. I don't remember the exact term.
I can't, there's a way to win this game that's different, that creates a win-win scenario.
Exactly.
It's something like that. So that's kind of what I was thinking.
Right.
Initially, it was like, oh my God, this is like, the worst thing that could ever happen.
Right.
And then I like switched back into, okay, but what could I learn from you?
Yeah.
Like, if you've been successful several times over,
Yeah.
several industries, there's something you're doing right that I wasn't doing
Sure.
right. And, look, if you're not getting the success, you got to find that mentor. And you happen to walk onto stage, and I said, that's my mentor.
Well, and I remember you actually, I've heard you many times from stage say that you basically hired a CEO.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly,
Yeah.
right.
Because there's things about running a business that I didn't like. And
Yeah.
I recognized that if I kept doing the same things, I was probably going to create the same result.
Yeah.
And being the CEO was not something I really wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, well, if I can use my talents in your company, even though I had that kind of autonomy, that independence, maybe I can start creating the results that I really wanted.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, exactly. And so let's talk about that for a second, because I do travel the globe. I meet entrepreneurs all the time. I love entrepreneurs. I always ask me what's going on in your business. I hear great stories. I hear sob stories, right? Because business could be like this, right? It doesn't technically go like that. And sometimes people say, I don't have a list, or I don't have money, or I don't have education, or what have you. Your leverage was this.
Yeah.
Okay, you didn't have a list. You didn't have a business at the time. You didn't have a lot of money at the time. And you came to me, I had a business, I was doing fine. But you basically approached me and said, hey, can we talk? And so what happened was this began a dialogue. And we were talking every day for about 6 weeks. But you're right, since then we've talked about it every day many times for about 10 years.
10 years.
Right, exactly. And so this went on, and as we were talking back and forth, you were just sharing your ideas with me. And I'm like, you know what? This guy's brilliant. And not only did I think you were brilliant, but also I felt like you were a kindred spirit, kind of a brother from another mother. And about 6 weeks later, we met in San Diego in a coffee shop. And I said, B, why don't you just come work with us? And you said yes. And we took over the world.
Well, what I really said was, that's kind of a tough choice. I can carry on struggling
Right.
and kind of figure this thing out by myself.
Right.
Or I could tap into a wealth of information and someone who's laid the foundation and say, okay, let me follow in your wake and let me add what I can to that, and maybe we can grow this exponentially. Yeah,
totally. And so I would say, in that moment, I kind of rescued you, but then you turn around and rescued me right back, which was incredible. And the reason why is because at the time I had leverage because I had a lot of employees, but there are things that, and I'm sure if you have a business, you probably have this laundry list of things that will move your business forward. It'll move the needle, right? But there's only one of you, and you just can't do it. And I had all that. And finally, when there was another one of me who had exceptional ideas, I got some leverage on a C-level in my business, and everything changed. So that's why we work with entrepreneurs. We want to help them get leverage in their business. Usually it's with an outsourcing team. And then the next step is you begin to bring in people at your level, C-level execs, and then your business really grows exponentially. And that's really what happened. We kind of got together, and in the last decade, we really crushed it. We created a big company. Now we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of employees on 3 continents. But even more importantly, we work with thousands and thousands and thousands and tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs all over the globe, changed their lives, inspired them to do great things, taught them how to do incredible stuff, and it's been very empowering for us.
As you were saying that, and I've attempted to do this calculation before, like
how many people have we hit?
How many people I've personally talked to over 10 years who've come to 1, 2, 3, 4 services, but you just end up having a conversation about entrepreneurship in general. And it's got to be 10,000. It's got to be, because it's like been 10 years. 5 to 10 people every single week for 10 years. Yeah. And when you have that much interaction, we get to learn a thing or two.
That's true. But
and that's some of the things that we've put some of that wisdom into VIA.
Yeah, for sure. And also, hundreds of thousands of people on our list, hundreds of thousands of people on our social media, hundreds of thousands of people have bought the last 10 books over the last decade. I mean, maybe it's 1 million people.
Wow.
Yeah, it'd be pretty neat. And you never know the ripple effect of the people you touch. But great segue to VIA. So let's talk about VIA, the Virtual Entrepreneurs Association. So I've learned, people, I personify that lifestyle. People want that lifestyle. But you were the test case. So let's get back to that. So how did that happen? Well, what happened was you and I started to work together, and the business really started to explode. And then, about 8 or 9 months in, less than that, right?
So around September 2009 is when we kind of connected.
Yeah.
We were really kind of working together by my birthday in October.
Mm-hmm.
And so things were going great.
Yep.
The first few months, we're hitting events, we're doing stuff together. And then in June of 2010, so I'm an immigrant here in the US. I had to then reapply for my visa
8
to
months.
work with 123.
Yeah.
And in the middle of that, somehow the person who was handling my case back then screwed up. So in June 2010, I get a phone call. You have two choices. Choice number one, become illegal here in the US. Or choice number two is you have to leave the country. Well, I didn't want to become illegal, that will jeopardize any future potential of staying here. So we had to leave the country. But I remember like, oh my God, what's Daven going to think? Because we just started, things were going good, but we were still new friends.
Yeah.
Right? And my first thought was, Daven's going to say, sorry, you can't work.
Right.
So when I told you, said, hey, Daven, I got some bad news. Well, I phrased it as bad news because it kind of was at that moment in time.
It was.
That, hey, I have to leave the country. Fully expecting, well, we really can't continue together, blah, blah. But what you said was, well, hang on a second, we teach this stuff.
Yeah.
We talk about becoming virtual entrepreneurs. And
this was a decade ago.
This was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So, hey, look, as long as you can do what you need to do, we can make this work.
Yeah.
So that was June.
So then I begged you, I said, move to Costa Rica or Panama so we could open up a Spanish center, and it's close, but you wanted to go to?
India. Now, I'm of Indian heritage, Indian descent, but I've never...
But you're a Brit.
But I'm a Brit.
You're a Brit.
I'm born and bred Brit.
Yeah.
And my family's never been to India. I'd been there a couple of times, but really just on vacation. So we don't really know anybody in India. We knew one person, really. But in July 2010, the 4th of July, I just dropped my brother-in-law at the airport. I come back, and my wife, Yogi, she has taken everything out of the closets because we're about to start selling everything we owned. The next 30 days, we sold everything. And then in September of 2010, 4 bags, 3 computers, 2 kids, 1 wife, we left the USA. And we thought we'd be away for maybe 6 months, maybe 12 months. It ended up being 5 years traveling as virtual entrepreneurs.
5 years. And we're going to start going deep and dissecting the life of the virtual entrepreneur. Before we do that, though, I just want to say, if you're watching us on the chat, there's always about a 20 to 30 second delay. So as you're listening and watching this, shoot your questions to us in the comments. We're going to answer these questions at the end. So make sure while you're watching, think questions, because we want to answer those questions for you. So yeah, I remember that day. I remember the picture of you guys at the airport, and you were off to India.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened?
So we get to India. We only really know one family. It's my dad's friend's son. We start there. And literally for the next 6 months, we literally went from city to city, kind of exploring India. And it was the most magical. So remember, we only had 4 bags. We had sold most of our stuff, but it was the most magical 6 months, just meeting new people, exploring, but also we were homeschooling at the time too. So our kids were kind of learning through life experience. We eventually settled in Bangalore, India, which is more to the south of India, and it's really more kind of a home base, we called it, because we'd then stay there for a few weeks and then go travel to Asia, Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, and then I'd be flying back to the US for doing events and stuff. And all this time, even though we're different time zones, we made it work. We'd find ways to making it work. And it was just a very magical time. In fact, it was my story on one of our events that inspired Roy Myers and his family to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Because one of the beliefs we have is that, well, I've got kids. How can I really do this virtual thing if you've got kids? Another one is, well, my business is brick and mortar. Well, our business is brick and mortar too.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
So we have employees, we have everything else. So the only limitations we have on becoming virtual and living that, now I'm not saying that it's for everybody, but I'm saying that if you have an aspiration to travel and you're allowing life circumstance to stop you, well, part of being via community is to get the resources, the support, the information of how to actually do that. And that was the amazing thing. That was just phenomenal.
Yeah. So I remember you wanted to move to India because so much was going on in India, right?
Yeah.
India was just starting to explode.
Actually, what happened was, I didn't want to move to India. What happened was, when we got the news that we'd have to leave the US, I kind of went into like freak out mode.
Yeah.
Yogi called a very close friend of ours over. He came over with his wife, and well, in literally over a cup of tea, which is ironic because it was over a cup of Indian tea. My friend turns to me and says, "You know what? You've been struggling with this immigration stuff for quite a few years. How about you guys go to India?" I was like, "What? India?" You know, and I said, "Yeah, you know, things are happening in India right now. It's you know, I think you should go." So literally, without a plan of action, without like any agenda, we just said yes to the opportunity, and that was it. That's how it happened. So it wasn't really even our choice. It was like someone suggested it. We said yes, and it was one of the best decisions we ever made.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And so many great things came from it. We ended up opening up our tech team in India. And since then, we've created many, many very successful software apps internally, externally. We launched a software platform year before last. We did 1.3 million in the first 30 days. But more importantly, you know, we're in the human capital business, right? So we actually ended up adding several million to our bottom line through bringing on 1,300 new customers. So, you know, things like that. We had those kind of breakthroughs, which was pretty neat. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, bringing kids with you. Like, you know, how do you educate your kids? How does all that work?
You know, I think we're living in a time when almost everything is possible because of technology.
Sure.
So, you know, between you know, Skype and online programs, there's so many online programs that cater towards kids traveling within the US, kids traveling out of the US, that you can make it work. You know, we had some US curriculum books when we started, and then about 2-3 years into it, we switched to an Indian curriculum, just in case they would go into an Indian school in the end. But we eventually did get our visa to come back to the US, so they just came back in, and you know, my younger daughter just slipped back, you know, back into the school system without any hiccup. You know, I think, you know, a lot of parents have concerns over, well, what about the social element?
Right.
Well, I think that's
always the number one concern.
Yeah, and I think that's part of parenting, is that you create that for them. You know, as long as kids are exposed to people, not even kids, exposed to people, and they learn some of the life skills of communication, you know, how to have a conversation, they can apply that to any age group. So that's what they did. They grew up in the speaking environment. They grew up around people, and they had no trouble integrating back into school. In fact, my older daughter, she didn't actually ever go back to school. She ended up doing an internship, and now she has gone back to India, and is now working for a coaching company out there. So.
Yeah, you know, in a minute we should talk more about that too, because I think that's pretty interesting. You know, today we are at my Vegas house, but as y'all know, I think a lot of you know that are on the stream with us, we moved to Puerto Rico about a year and a half ago. And we love it for so many reasons. I mean, it's nice to live in paradise, but also we've tapped into an unbelievable community. We probably have about 150 friends in Puerto Rico, which just makes life so cool. When people move to different places, whether it's for a month, 3 months, or indefinitely, for a lot of people, what's really important is community. And a lot of people, I think, struggle or are afraid of moving somewhere where they don't know anybody. You created an unbelievable community in India, or tapped into one. You want to speak to that?
Yeah, so, you know, after we kind of found our way to Bangalore, India, I used Meetup. My first kind of mechanism to meet people was...
Now, did you go to someone's meetup, or do you create your own meetup?
So I started by going.
Okay.
And then I actually set up my own meetups.
Now, just a real quick segue for a second, or make a quick distinction. Some of you may not know what Meetup is, so most of you probably do. But Meetup is on the web, and let's say you move to Las Vegas, and let's say that you're an avid biker and you love Jane Austen novels. Well, you go to meetup.com, and for free you put in what your likes are, and then Meetup will send you regular emails from people that have Jane Austen groups or biking groups or whatever you like doing within a 50-mile radius, and you can go hang out with those groups. You can hang out with like-minded people that like to do fun stuff in whatever niche you like. So you can go to other people's Meetup groups, or you can create your own Meetup group.
Yeah. And that's what we did. I went to some meetup groups, a couple of BNI meetings, some events that were happening, and slowly and surely you make connections. And some of those people I met early on are still some of my best friends today. There's like, you know, 3 or 4, you know, where I'm in calls with almost every single day, you know. And so it's been wonderful. Just expand your community, expand your base, because we're not limited by the city we live in anymore.
Right.
We can truly be virtual in the good sense, in terms of, virtual connections that are as meaningful as someone as you might meet, locally. So.
Yeah, I totally get that. We lived in Hollywood Hills for the last 15 years before Puerto Rico and Vegas, and we grew up in, well, when I say we, my girlfriend and I, we both grew up in Southern California. That was our life. And the idea of when we first moved to Vegas, we didn't know, we knew a few people, and it was like, oh my gosh, now I absolutely have the code for creating community or tapping into a community. And we could do it anywhere. And the idea of that just excites me. Like, hey, let's move to Brazil for 3 months. We'll tap into a community. Let's live in Mexico for a year. We'll tap into a community or create one. It's just, once you do it, it's easy, right? Yeah, it's formulaic, right? And speaking of formulas, two things. One is, for those of you that don't know what BNI is, we mentioned BNI. So BNI is a networking group. There are BNI groups all over the U.S. I think they're worldwide, actually.
Worldwide,
yeah. And they get together once a week in the morning for breakfast, and they exchange leads, basically. And there's also other groups called like LaTip, and there's all types of networking groups like that. Also, you mentioned Meetup. Well, if you're in our VIA private group, and by the way, if you're not a VIA member, certainly get your free trial. Simply go to viacommunity.org, and you can try out VIA for a couple weeks free. It's incredible. But in our private group in VIA, we do lots of different trainings. Everything from lead gen to business process to management. The list goes on and on. I recently did a training where I showed how to create an instant list in LinkedIn. Well, I will do, if you want, drop it in the chat and let me know if you want me to do this. But if you're a VIA member and you want us to do this, I will do a training on how to turn Meetup into an instant list. So happy to do that. Just type it in the chat if you'd like me to share that with you. So, all right, so you create this awesome community in India. You end up staying there 5 years. And what did you glean from all this? Or better yet, what did you create? What did you create?
Well, I think relationships, I believe, at the end of the day, we can have all the material stuff in the world, but it's the relationships that I believe are the most valuable things we create. Relationships with your loved ones, with your children, with your friends. So for me, if I had to one takeaway, that would be the biggest thing. Like, we saw incredible stuff. We traveled extensively with ancient temples, different countries, different cultures, amazing beaches, resorts, and everything else, which was great. But it's the people you meet, the humanity you meet along this journey, which I think I'll treasure more than anything else. There's one moment, I always tell a story, which is I was in a rickshaw, and on my right side was one of the Google buildings. On my left was
slum.
It was a slum, and then in between us was a cow. I'm on a call with one of our agents in the Philippines, because I just received a message from one of our clients in the US. And I just kind of look up, and like, oh my God. How things have changed. Like, here you are so connected in the world these days that you can be in an auto rickshaw in a busy street in India with the technology giant on one side, with the reality of humanity on the other side, with a cow right there, and then you're having this business discussion with clients and your team. It was a very surreal moment in our experience. Absolutely.
So let's talk about, you have two incredible daughters. I have to say, you and Yogi are the best parents I've ever experienced in my life. You guys are so incredibly good and it's so incredibly great. And honestly, you guys have been great mentors to us with our kids. I always turn to you for advice when it comes to what the hell am I going to do with my dang kids, right? Which they're good kids, but boy, parenting is certainly challenging, right? But you did some really groundbreaking things. First of all, Shivani became a speaker at what, age 10?
She was about, I think, 8 years old when she emceed her very first event for about 3,500 people. So she kind of grew up wanting to sing. So she grew up on stage, but the first time she actually did a speaking event was when she was 8. And then she spoke at our event, I think, when she was 10.
Yeah. Now, by the way, I will just let you know, I'm in the speaking world. So I'm kind of traveling the globe, and I'm kind of in this circuit of superhumans. That's what speakers are. They're all people who have achieved unbelievable things, people that have walked on the moon and hung out with presidents and queens and kings. And so pretty much all of my friends, their kids start a business at 8. By the time they're 14, they're millionaires. By the time they're 16, they have a nonprofit. By the time they're 18, they're retired. So I will just say that that's not everybody. I'm in the speaking world. My kids that's not my kids. They're just normal, happy kids. Successful, happy kids, but just regular kids. So, and it's okay. So I just want you to all know out there, it's okay to have kids. But super kids are really exciting, and you can learn a lot from them. So Shivani, she started speaking really young. And then at 15, you tell me of this crazy idea of something you're going to do with Shivani. Yeah, and I thought it was crazy.
So, we had, I love gamification. So I like, and I do a lot of my speaking in character-based.
You do.
Why? Because I believe that people don't retain information as much, but they always retain the experiences. Right?
People want to be edutained, not.
So we were part of this kind of this program based on game-based training. Now we had just joined, and a kind of call went out looking for an intern, and so I kind of thought, I wonder if this might be a potential different education path for Shivani. So I kind of discussed it with her, and she was actually 14 at the time, and even though part of me was excited for her, part of me was very nervous, right? So first of all, I've got to back up. Being Indian, not having your kids in school is huge. It's not
right.
like regular,
your parents thought you were nuts.
It's not like regular, oh, my kids are homeschooled. Being Indian in homeschooling is there's very few people who do it ever, right? So when I told my parents, they freaked out. I think they're still freaking out, right? But we chose that, and it's turned out good.
Yeah.
However, at 15, we were about to come back to the US, which would have meant them going back into school or continuing regular homeschooling. But this opportunity came along, and I kind of went to Shivani, Shivani, would you be interested? And she said yes. I then attempted to talk her out of it by explaining all the negatives. So it's going to be hard work, it's going to be long hours, you won't have your high school friends, blah, 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 right? And she said, no, I made the decision. So I think as parents, one of the key things is to support your kid's decision. It may not always work out, but you know what, business doesn't work out, sometimes relationships don't work out. We all have these things which we believe will work, and they don't. And the key thing is we don't judge it for being right or wrong, we just judge it for being the experience, right? And so we kind of went with that attitude, okay, this could be a good thing, it may not work out, but what the hell, as a family, we'll work through whatever challenges show up. So she does this internship, so at just after her 15th birthday, we were actually transitioning back to the US. So we're actually in the UK, and just after her 15th birthday, she joins this company and spends the next 2 years traveling around the world, Malaysia, Singapore, Melbourne, Australia, London, San Diego, working with this company, learning. At 15.
On her own.
Yeah, on her own. So that was her education. So in addition to just the virtual entrepreneurship, I believe we're now emerging into an era of alternative forms of education. And as parents, I think we have to be open to and not be afraid of embracing this. I think that's kind of the thing. I think there's fear in terms of starting a business. There's fear in looking at new opportunities. There's fear in what if I have to travel overseas? Even though we think of traveling around the world, most people don't because of, I don't know how. Right? In fact, had it not been us being forced to leave the country, I don't think we would have because of the perceptions of, how does it actually work, right? Even though it's something that a lot of entrepreneurs aspire to, traveling around the world, we don't allow ourselves to break through these fears and actually embrace what life can offer us. So,
yeah, thinking about the travel part, I should probably do a training on how to travel awesome.
Yeah, because you have some great tips,
ninja
stuff.
Oh yeah, I travel probably about 130,000 miles a year, and I do it in style. Because otherwise I'd be miserable. So there's a lot to learn from that, and I can definitely show people how to do that. Somebody put that on our training list, and I'll do it for the VIA community. And if you're not a member of the VIA community, get your free trial at viacommunity.org, right? It's the best tool there is if you want to live the virtual.
There's travel discounts.
That's right. Oh yeah, I forgot about the travel discounts. So if you want to live the virtual lifestyle, if that's what you aspire to do, VIA is certainly the place to do that. So I thought you were nuts when you sent Shivani out on the road at 15. How did it all work out?
It was great. It was a great exposure for her to the world. You grow up very fast.
She became very worldly.
Very worldly. She's got friends
Great traveler.
all over the world.
Yeah.
She did 2 years, and then she kind of came back home, and she kind of spent a year kind of rediscovering herself.
Right.
And then early this year, we were traveling in India, and we were actually, one of my friends, he's a speaker in India, in fact, probably one of the top business coaches in Asia. And we were at his office, and I kind of looked at his office, and I kind of go back a second here. So 3 or 4 years prior, I was sitting in an event with him, and they were kind of doing corporate training. And over the next 3-4 years, he had transformed his company with his partners into this phenomenal company in India. And it was thriving, there's a buzz in his office. And I kind of, Shivani's like at the next stage, what do I do next in life? And she had a great kind of a start, went through this phenomenal worldly experience. And I felt just kind of coming back to the US and just kind of settling for stuff here wasn't the right timing. I wanted her to get an experience of working overseas. Well, it wasn't I wanted to. I thought it'd be good for her. Mm-hmm. Well, all right, let's be parents, okay? Mm. I wanted her to get a more worldly experience.
Yeah.
And I felt as a parent it'd be good for her. So I kind of planted a seed and said, hey, Shivani, this might be a really great place to intern. I'm thinking still, education now.
Right. And
so I said, you might want to ask my friend Rajiv if you could intern here.
So your strategy was to make it her idea.
Yeah.
Right.
And in terms of, I wanted her to take ownership. I wanted to kind of encourage, but in the day, it had to be her idea.
Totally.
She had to want it, not me as a parent, right?
Because she's a teenager.
Because she's a teenager. Yeah. And people will support an idea that they create.
Right?
I said, look, I believe what Rajiv has done is phenomenal. I think there's a lot you can learn from being part of a team environment that you can then, build upon. So she kind of took the idea and she kind of played with it in her head for about 24 hours. And then she goes, you know what? I think I really want this. I was kind of amazed. I was kind of surprised at first. I thought, she's going from a very freedom-based lifestyle to working for a company. So I wasn't expecting her to say yes, actually. Mm-hmm. But when she did, I was kind of pleased. And she talked to my friend. He said, look, I don't know. Let me talk to my partners. They said a few days later, they kind of had a phone call with Shivani and said, look, sorry, we can't take you on as an intern. She was, oh, okay. However, we'll give you a job. So, a few months later, a few weeks later, she packed up everything in the US.
Moved to India.
Along with her boyfriend.
And then you started crying and you're...
there was a 24-hour, 48-hour period of, oh my God.
You lost your shit.
My baby girl has left the home.
Yeah.
And she's 19 now, which probably means that she's never really going to be coming back home.
If you're lucky. No, I'm just kidding.
and that's where I had this thing. I've been sharing this. People are like, what? Because there's no ROI in parenting.
Right.
People go, whoa, what do you mean? I said, look, as parents, we have our children. They're with us maybe for 16, 18 years, and then they're going to leave.
Yeah.
And if you don't make the most of those 18 years, being a parent, being present for them, you miss out. And people think, oh, my kid's only 2. They grow up so fast. It's a very cliche thing.
Yeah.
But now with the 14, 18-year-old, I say they grow up too fast.
Yeah.
And then they're gone, and they're living their own life. And if you're lucky, they're in the same town. But thanks to technology, we have this, we still chat. I had a conversation with her this morning. So it's fantastic. It's great.
And is she thriving?
Yeah, she's loving it.
She's loving it.
In fact, she and her boyfriend are actually taking part in an event in about 4 weeks' time. They're going to be coaching speakers and trainers in India.
Aren't they both speaking on the same stage?
Yeah, they're speaking on the same stage together, teaching. So that's awesome.
So cool. So cool. So we're going to start answering questions in a minute. I'm going to start checking my phone. So I'm not checking my texts. I'm checking questions from you guys. So please feel free to throw them in. But to kind of close up that loop, what would you say to people who are thinking about living the virtual lifestyle? What tips would you give them? How would you tell them to approach it?
First create the mechanism. The mechanism being the type of business that will afford you the ability to travel. an online business is great. You can pretty much run it from anywhere. A brick and mortar business, it can be done. Just needs a little bit more planning, a little bit more management. But it can be, look, you don't have to do 5 years. You might want to do it for 6 months, 12 months. But the key thing to know is it can be done. You know, we've done it. Our friend Roy Myers is doing it with his family. There are many other families doing this. So don't let the fact that you're, you know, that school and all the stuff that we fear stop you from doing it. Just create a plan of action. Don't be attached to where you are, who you know, everything else. Everything is changing in this world so quickly. So, you know, that's my advice. Just make it happen. But first of all, get the foundation in base, get a connection, a relationship, or in terms of the business that will allow you the freedom to travel. So that's it.
Cool. All right. So the first question is, somebody said, how do I get a copy of your book, Daven? So my new book is out, The Virtual Entrepreneur. It is my 10th book, and as a result, we have a special commemorative version of it, a hardback version, and you can actually get a free copy if you go to Via Community. Whoops. Excuse me. If you go to viacommunity.org, when you sign up for your free trial, you can actually get a free copy of that. Let's see. I am trying to check out more questions, but when I do, it's... Oh, I know what I can do. Okay, here we go. Sign up for your free trial. Okay, there we go. Okay. Oh, yeah, this is a great question from Michael Kilisperis. How are you, buddy? It's good to see you. Telling a joke for a minute, left for me. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, so... the questions are moving by real quick, but the question is, you know, how do you get a good partnership? How do you end up with somebody you can trust? So I will tell you something. When I started my first business at 15, my accountant said something to me that never left me and guided my life. And that was, they said to me, partnerships are sinking ships. Partnerships are sinking ships. And I have found that to be the case. Having a partnership is like a sexless marriage. There's no payoff, okay? Typically. And what I have found is that most of the partnerships I've had did not go well. Beejel and I shook hands one day, and so 6 weeks after we met in the coffee shop, I said, B, come work with us. I said, B, I will teach you everything I know under one condition. Don't F me. And he never did. Yep. I will tell you this, never go into a partnership with a handshake. It's the dumbest thing you can ever do. You should have a contract. And by the way, excuse me, I've been sick, so sorry about that. A partnership agreement is worthless. Okay, I'm telling you that. A partnership agreement is worthless. It won't do anything for you. I mean, yeah, you can sue somebody, you know, when they breach the contract. It's going to be expensive and time consuming, and it may never pay off. The reason you have a partnership agreement is it just clarifies what your roles are in the relationship. Having said that, we never had one. We just shook hands and got lucky as hell. That was it, lucky as hell. I felt in my gut it was the right thing to do. Beejel felt the same thing. We had no clue. That's the reality, because we all think that we're like great judges of character, and I think to a certain degree I am, I think to a certain degree you are, but the reality is you don't know a person when you meet him. You meet that person and you say, that person's really great, and then you beam on them what your perception is of them until such time as they either prove you right or they prove you wrong. Yeah. Right?
I think, you know, with that said, you know, we don't have a classic model of how to build the partnership, right? So, but what we do have, what we did have, and do have, is a set of values and a set of roles in the company. And I think really we built upon that. And when we first met, we shared what our aspirations were, and they matched. And they didn't really overlap. They were not competitive. So that's a key thing. The other thing is that I knew very well that there's things I didn't want to do, and there's the things that Daven said, hey, this is what I kind of need your help with, and it just worked. Now over time, those roles have evolved, and you know, more or less they still work. So you know, a little bit of luck in terms of, you know, the starting point, but over time, you know, we've had to learn. We've had our differences in terms of which direction we go in.
Oh, sure. Right? Yeah.
So communication is very key, not to kind of let things bottle up and then, you know, fall apart. But yeah, I mean, I think the key thing is go back to values. If your values are the same, and you have the right kind of aspirations for the future, and don't have a short-term plan. I think so many entrepreneurs think really short-term. Think 5, 10 years. Think where are we going to take this? What's the exit strategy? If your exit strategies are not the same, that's going to be a recipe for disaster.
And I think the biggest thing in a partnership is these are my roles and these are your roles. And I think probably the only times we have like major conflict is when we try to step on each other's roles in the business, right? And people always ask me, Daven, what do you do in the business? Or they ask you, what do you do in the business? And you tell them?
Everything that Daven doesn't want to do.
Exactly, right. Yeah. And vice versa. So I do everything that Beejel doesn't want to do, I guess to a certain degree.
Yeah, like if I had to run like payroll and all those kind of stuff, it would drive me nuts.
Yeah.
It would kill my creativity.
And I actually hate that part of the business too, but for the most part I just have to oversee it. But I've been doing it for so long, it's doable.
I handle customer complaints.
Yeah, right? Which I would, what I would do. Oh my gosh.
He's not allowed to answer those.
I'm not allowed to answer those kind of emails or what have you. Beejel is much more PC than I am. I'm not PC at all, unfortunately. Oh my gosh. Also, I want to give a shout to all of these awesome people that are on with us right now. To Yogi, it's great to see you. Of course, Beejel's wife is on. Michael Calasperas, love you, brothers. I really appreciate your support. It's so great to have you here. Lee Wayne, my buddy in Australia. Lee was on tour with me for a month, several months ago in Australia. It was awesome. AJ Mita, my new partner in Puerto Rico, and we'll see you out here in about a week or two, which is really cool. Karen Glasser, my old friend, thanks for being on with us. Doug Wellens, awesome to see you. And my buddy Dieslow, what's up, my man? And let's see, I'm just going to switch over to one of our other groups to see if there's any other questions I can answer for you guys before we sign off. What I did want to talk about while I'm looking up these questions is I want to talk for a second about partnerships. Remember, I was told when I was young and starting my business that partnerships are sinking ships, and for the most part, I found that to be the case. But the greatest thing is the hybrid of that. And the hybrid of that are joint ventures or affiliate relationships. And those partnerships, I've had, hundreds and hundreds of them, if not 1,000 of them over the years. And you know what? 99.999% of them have been fantastic. And so let me kind of explore that with you guys for a second, the idea of joint ventures. So what do I mean by that? Well, at 123 Employee and at VIA, we have thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of our affiliate partners all over the globe. And who are these people? Well, these people are what I call my invisible workforce. They actually send us deals all day long. They're sending us business all the time. And whether we're sleeping or awake, like I love it. Like Liz and I will go to the movies and I'll hold up my phone. I'll go, look, babe, we just made 20 grand. I mean, it's just so cool. And that's because our partners are working it all the time. And the reason they are is because we're incentivizing them all the time. So we pay them for the business that they send us. That's what an affiliate relationship is. And that's an awesome relationship because you're not in a formal partnership. If they, embezzle money from a big company and run it through their corporation to launder their money, you're not involved in that at all, right? You just have a joint venture relationship. You have a marketing partnership where you're going to push their product or they're going to push your product or service. You're going to pay them a commission or they're going to pay you a commission. You have all the benefits of a partnership, but you have none of the liability of a partnership. And we love doing those all day long. And I do trainings on that kind of partnership all the time, and I'll continue to do them as well. All right, so Shelly Michael said yes on meetup details. Okay, so on my next VIA training to the VIA community, I will do a training on how to turn Meetup into an instant list. And if you're not in the VIA community yet, simply go to viacommunity.org and get yourself in. All right, so I think we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank you for joining us on the stream. I think we shared some great stories. We talked a lot about the virtual entrepreneur lifestyle. I will tell you this, it's the greatest thing ever. I love it. I know you love it. And we just want to empower another 100,000 entrepreneurs over the next 36 months or so to do the same. So we're going to do it. All right, until next time, this is Daven Michaels with Beejel Parmar. Live your true life adventure. Bye for now.
Bye for now.